Hello, esteemed gentlemen. Some men break the rules, others vanish and make the rules irrelevant. There's a particular kind of man who doesn't march to the beat of any drum because he's the drummer, composer, and entire marching band in his own world. While alphas bark orders and flex muscle, the Sigma male moves in eerie silence. He doesn't want your throne. He wants you to wonder if the throne even matters. And that's why he's terrifying. Here's a fact. Psychological studies show that the most unsettling individuals in group dynamics aren't the loudest or most dominant. They're the unpredictable outliers who don't play the social game at all. That's the Sigma. He's not trying to win in your hierarchy. He's busy building an entirely different ecosystem behind the scenes. And just when everyone thinks they've figured him out, he vanishes like a glitch in reality, leaving behind nothing but results, confusion, and a very nervous alpha wondering if he was ever in control to begin with. So buckle up, because in this video we're diving into 12 terrifying things Sigma males do that no alpha man dares to. The raw, the real, and the deeply unsettling truths that most people aren't ready to admit. And hey, if you're an alpha watching this, don't worry. This isn't personal, it's just evolution. Let's get into it. Number 1. They don't warn you before becoming a legend. They don't warn you before becoming a legend. That's what makes Sigma males unnerving. There are no fireworks, no ego-fueled speeches, no public declarations of greatness. While others are busy announcing their rise, chasing applause, and posting every step of their so-called grind, the Sigma moves differently. He works in silence, thinks in private, and builds in the shadows. No one sees it coming, not even the people closest to him. You won't hear him bragging about his next big thing. He won't be throwing quotes around about how he's built different. He just is. While everyone else is performing, chasing validation, playing status games, constantly needing to be seen, the Sigma is invisible by choice. But he's not idle. He's building something bigger than a name. He's building impact. And it doesn't look flashy while it's happening. That's what fools people. His progress doesn't scream, it whispers. And when it all comes together, the success, the influence, the transformation, it's not because he forced the world to see him. It's because the world suddenly realizes it can't ignore him anymore. The same people who doubted him, talked over him, or thought he wasn't a threat, now whisper his name in the rooms they used to dominate. And they all ask the same question. When did this happen? The truth? It was happening the whole time. They just weren't paying attention. Because he didn't need their attention. That's the Sigma's power. While alphas are often too busy defending their status and maintaining their image, Sigmas are making moves that don't need an audience. They're not trying to inspire envy. They're crafting legacy. Quietly, efficiently, and ruthlessly. There's no warning shot with a Sigma male. No loud announcement. He could be the quiet guy in the corner right now, working 10 steps ahead. The one who barely speaks, but absorbs everything. Then one day, without permission or applause, he's just there. A legend. The kind people don't forget, not because he forced himself into history, but because he was never trying to be part of the noise. He became the echo that never leaves. Number 2. They learn without needing to be taught. They learn without needing to be taught. That's one of the most unnerving things about Sigma males. Their ability to grow, adapt, and master complex ideas without traditional guidance. While alphas often rely on mentors, groups, and structured systems to level up, the Sigma carves his own path in absolute solitude. He doesn't wait to be shown. He watches. He decodes. He absorbs in silence. He studies people without them knowing. Conversations, behaviors, slip-ups. It's all data to him. And instead of mimicking what works for others, he quietly extracts the essence and reshapes it to fit his own framework. He learns not just from success, but from discomfort, failure, rejection, even silence. Everything becomes a teacher, but no one gets the credit. There's no YouTube guru, no mastermind group, no life coach behind the Sigma's transformation, just relentless introspection and brutal self-accountability. He dissects his own thoughts like a surgeon, questions his own biases, challenges his own programming. While others seek validation from external teachers, the Sigma's main dialogue is with the man in the mirror. And that conversation gets real dark, real fast. And yet, without applause or external push, he levels up in terrifying ways. People who once underestimated him suddenly can't recognize who he's become. He speaks differently, moves differently, makes decisions with unnerving precision. And they ask, who taught him this? The answer? No one. He taught himself. This kind of self-evolution makes him a wild card in every environment. He can't be easily profiled. You can't predict how he'll respond because he's not following any script. There's no loyalty to the herd, no dependency on group wisdom. He could be 5 moves ahead, and you'd never see it coming, because you assumed someone had to teach him how to win. What makes this terrifying is that the Sigma male doesn't rise through the expected systems. He creates his own. While others are networking, climbing, rehearsing, he's already becoming alone, in silence. And when he arrives, he doesn't just belong, he dominates. Not because someone prepared him for it, but because no one had to. Number 3, they can love without being possessed. They can love without being possessed. That's not just rare. It's deeply unsettling to most people, especially those who equate love with control. Sigma males don't see love as something to dominate, display, or conquer. For them, love isn't a trophy. It's a connection. And if that connection turns into a cage, they will walk, no matter how deep the feelings run. This makes them unpredictable in relationships, not because they're afraid of commitment, but because they refuse to be owned. While alphas may treat love like a power play or proof of their desirability, Sigmas reject the idea that love should come with terms, surveillance, or behavioral contracts. You can be the woman of his dreams, but the moment you start monitoring him, reshaping him, or demanding emotional proof on your timeline, he becomes distant, and then gone. What's terrifying is that a Sigma's love is real. It's deep, intense, and pure, but it's never desperate. He doesn't stay just because he's emotionally invested. He stays if the space remains free. His love doesn't depend on control, guilt, or emotional performance. It flows naturally, without pressure. And when it's reciprocated with the same freedom, it's electric. But most people aren't ready for that kind of autonomy. They want access, ownership, guarantees. You can't leash a Sigma. He won't play the role of someone's emotional security blanket. He won't chase or beg. His love isn't transactional. It's offered, not traded. So when he walks away, it doesn't mean he didn't care. It means he cared enough not to let love turn into something smaller, uglier, or more conditional than it was meant to be. That kind of detachment shakes people, because they expect that deep love must come with attachment, obligation, even sacrifice. But the Sigma doesn't love to lose himself. He loves with his whole self, and if that self isn't welcome in its pure, untamed form, he disappears without resentment or revenge. He'll remember you fondly. He'll respect the moments you shared. But he won't stay where his freedom dies, not even for love. And that's what makes him both unforgettable and untouchable. Number 4, they can abandon power without losing power. They can abandon power without losing power. That's not just rare. It's nearly incomprehensible in a world where most men are their titles, their money, their influence. For alpha males, dominance is the entire personality. Take away their rank, their following, their empire, and suddenly they're lost, stripped of the identity they've spent years manufacturing. But the Sigma, he can let it all go, the recognition, the access, the position, and still walk with the same quiet confidence that unnerves everyone in the room. That's because his power never came from external labels. It came from within. His presence is not built on validation. It's built on self-possession. He doesn't chase power to prove his worth. He only uses it when necessary and discards it the second it starts owning him. That's what separates him from the alpha. The ability to let go of what others would kill to keep, and still feel no sense of loss. People watch in disbelief when a Sigma walks away from things that others would bleed for. A high-ranking position, an elite group, a high-status relationship. Not out of failure, not out of fear, but out of a deep, unshakable commitment to his own freedom. And the scariest part, he doesn't flinch. There's no second guessing, no meltdown, no identity crisis. He simply steps away like it meant nothing, because to him it never owned him. That kind of detachment terrifies people who are still ruled by titles and applause. It reveals how dependent they are on things the Sigma sees as optional. It forces them to question whether they've built a life or just a prison made of praise. When a Sigma walks away, he doesn't weaken. He clarifies. His strength becomes more concentrated, more dangerous, more pure. He reminds everyone watching that the real ones don't need a throne to command respect. They carry it in how they move, how they think, and how easily they can vanish without losing an ounce of presence. To those addicted to power, that kind of self-mastery isn't just confusing, it's terrifying, because it proves the strongest man in the room is the one who doesn't need the room at all. Number 5. They reject brotherhood loyalty in favor of self-sovereignty. They reject brotherhood loyalty in favor of self-sovereignty. While alpha males often thrive in packs, surrounded by their clique, their tribe, their boys, the Sigma walks alone, not out of bitterness, but because he sees what most men don't, the hidden price of belonging. Alphas build their strength through group loyalty, code words, unspoken rules, and chest-pounding unity. The Sigma sees that for what it often is, a disguised form of control. He doesn't care about loyalty pacts, status circles, or being accepted by other high-value men. In fact, the more the group demands allegiance, the more he distances himself, not because he can't handle brotherhood, but because he refuses to sacrifice his autonomy for it. Most men crave inclusion. The Sigma craves independence, and that means burning bridges that start to look like chains. He can sit at the table with powerful men and not feel the need to impress or compete. He can agree with no one and still walk away with full confidence in his direction. He doesn't need to be part of the tribe to feel worthy. His worth is internal, not socially distributed. This makes him a threat to every codependent system built on blind loyalty. He won't co-sign bad behavior just to stay in good standing. He won't defend someone just because they're one of the guys. And if the so-called brotherhood starts expecting submission in the name of unity, he'll walk, quietly, completely, and without looking back. To many, that seems disloyal, cold, even arrogant. But to the Sigma, it's not disloyalty, it's self-respect. He's not against brotherhood, he's against cages. And any group that requires him to dim his instincts, mute his voice, or compromise his core just to belong isn't a brotherhood. It's a cult with better branding. What makes this terrifying is that he can be surrounded by powerful men and still not care what they think of him. That kind of self-governance is rare. It makes people uneasy, because deep down, most men aren't leading their own lives. They're just doing what the tribe says is respectable. The Sigma refuses, and that refusal is a revolution all by itself. Number 6. They control sexual energy without being controlled by it. They control sexual energy without being controlled by it. While most men are busy proving their masculinity through conquests, flexing their appeal, or measuring their worth by how many people want them, the Sigma male is operating on a completely different frequency. He understands that desire is powerful, but power, in the wrong hands, becomes a weakness. So instead of chasing pleasure or validation, he masters it. You won't catch him bragging about his body count or trying to seduce for ego points. That's alpha behavior, dominance by display. The Sigma doesn't need to announce his appeal. He doesn't use sex as currency. He doesn't need it to feel powerful. He is powerful, with or without it. That's what makes him unnerving. While others are ruled by lust, the Sigma is capable of feeling intense desire without being hijacked by it. It's not that he's uninterested, it's that he's in control. He can be deeply attracted to someone and still walk away if the energy feels off. He can delay gratification not because he's denying himself, but because he refuses to be driven by instinct like a puppet on a string. His restraint is not repression, it's focused clarity. It says, I could but I won't unless I choose to. This self-discipline sends a shockwave through people used to manipulating others with attraction. They don't know what to do when seduction doesn't work, when charm bounces off his emotional armor, when he doesn't chase like most do. That refusal to follow the script flips the power dynamic instantly, because when someone isn't ruled by what everyone else craves, you can't control them. And the truth is, the Sigma doesn't pursue, he summons. His presence, his energy, his detachment creates magnetism. People want him because he doesn't need them. They lean in because he doesn't reach. And when he does choose intimacy, it's intentional, electric, and unforgettable, because it wasn't taken. It was granted. That kind of mastery over desire is terrifying to anyone whose entire sense of power is built on seduction, because the Sigma sees through it, rises above it, and owns it without ever being owned. Number 7. They are capable of extreme emotional coldness. They are capable of extreme emotional coldness, not out of spite, not out of immaturity, but out of necessity and precision. While alphas often use emotion to assert dominance, rile people up, or prove a point, Sigmas operate on a different level. They don't need the back and forth. They don't thrive on emotional battles. If a situation becomes toxic, manipulative, or just drains their peace, they don't argue. They disappear. There's no outburst, no dramatic goodbye, no need to explain their silence. They simply cut the emotional cord like it never existed. One moment you're part of their inner circle. The next, you're met with a psychological dead zone. No malice, no closure, just a total shutdown. It's like you never existed in their world, even if you once meant everything. This emotional coldness isn't easy to spot at first because Sigmas are calm, measured, and often misunderstood as emotionally detached. But that's not the full truth. They feel things deeply, sometimes more than they show, but they refuse to let emotions compromise their boundaries. The moment they sense manipulation, dependency, or emotional games, a switch flips. And once it's off, there's no begging it back on. People around them often don't realize it's over until they're talking to a version of the Sigma that feels hollow, untouchable. He's still polite, still civil, but emotionally, he's gone. That warm, attentive presence is replaced by something colder than anger, indifference. And that's what unnerves people most. Not the yelling, not the confrontation, but the absence, the vacuum, the realization that someone can shut down emotional access so cleanly, like a surgeon with no pulse. This kind of coldness terrifies those who rely on emotional leverage to feel powerful. Because with the Sigma, that leverage doesn't work. He doesn't need closure, and he doesn't hand it out. His emotional cutoff is swift, clean, and final. No drama, no chaos. Just silence that echoes louder than any fight ever could. And once he's emotionally cold toward you, you don't get the heat back. Ever. Number 8. They ghost empires, not just people. They ghost empires, not just people. While alphas fight for dominance within the system, climbing ladders, crushing rivals, claiming thrones, the Sigma male quietly studies the architecture of the whole thing and decides it's not worth his time. He doesn't need to conquer it. He simply leaves, and when he does, the entire system feels it. Not because he made noise, but because his absence leaves behind a void that exposes how hollow the empire really was. This is what separates the Sigma from every other type of powerful man. He's not interested in ruling a space that doesn't align with his soul. He'll play the game if it serves a purpose, but the second he sees it's rigged, shallow, or corrupt, he doesn't revolt, he vanishes. Not out of weakness, but out of clarity. He doesn't need the kingdom. The kingdom needs him. He's the kind of man who can walk out of a high-level company meeting mid-sentence and never return, not to prove a point, but because the whole thing started to stink of politics and performance. And when he's gone, the ripple isn't just professional, it's existential. People don't just ask where he went. They start asking why they stayed. His departure pulls back the curtain. Suddenly the structure feels performative, the leaders feel insecure, and the culture feels fake. Because he wasn't just a player in the system, he was the exception that made it feel legitimate. And once he ghosts it, that legitimacy collapses. Most people need systems to survive, for identity, income, or status. The Sigma doesn't. He is the system, self-contained, self-powered, and that terrifies institutions that thrive on dependence. He doesn't overthrow leaders, he makes them irrelevant simply by no longer showing up. The ghosting of an empire isn't loud, it's surgical, quiet, disturbingly effective. One day he's there, shaping conversations, guiding strategy, influencing culture. The next he's gone. No explanation, no announcement, no closure. Just an empty space where excellence used to sit. And in that silence, people start realizing the scariest truth of all. The system only mattered because he was in it. Number 9. They don't fear the villain label. They don't fear the villain label. In fact, if being misunderstood is the price of staying true to themselves, Sigma males will pay it in full, without flinching. While alphas crave admiration and often bend themselves into palatable shapes to maintain public approval, the Sigma refuses to perform. He doesn't sanitize his truth just to look like the good guy. If his honesty makes you uncomfortable, if his choices challenge your moral script, if his silence feels threatening, that's your issue, not his. People call him cold, arrogant, or antisocial not because he is, but because he doesn't play by the emotional rules they're used to. He doesn't flatter. He doesn't explain himself. And he definitely doesn't soften the blow to protect fragile egos. He says what needs to be said, does what needs to be done. And if that makes him look like the villain in your story, so be it. He's not here to be liked, he's here to be real. This terrifies people who are addicted to being liked. The ones who build their identities around applause, approval, and acceptance don't know what to do with someone who doesn't care how he's remembered. That level of freedom is disturbing. It makes others question their own masks, their own compromises, their own need for constant validation. What's even scarier is that the Sigma doesn't go out of his way to offend or rebel. He's not trying to be edgy. He's just uninterested in fake peace or surface-level harmony. He'll walk away from anything, a friendship, a deal, a reputation, the moment it demands he betray his core. And if that exit gets him painted as the villain, he'll wear the label like armor. Because in the Sigma's world, being hated for who you truly are is still a cleaner life than being loved for who you pretend to be. That brutal self-loyalty shakes people to their core. Not because it's cruel, but because it reveals how many others would sell their soul just to be liked. Number 10. They befriend their dark side instead of hiding it. They befriend their dark side instead of hiding it. Most men are terrified of their shadow. The anger, the fear, the obsession, the envy. All the things that don't fit into the good guy image. Alphas especially often bury these parts to keep their heroic mask polished. They want to be seen as leaders, protectors, winners. So they suppress the chaos, hoping no one ever sees the cracks. But Sigmas don't play that game. The Sigma male doesn't deny his darker impulses. He studies them. He doesn't run from his rage, insecurity, or hunger for destruction. He sits with it, dissects it, understands it, and in doing so, he takes control of something most men fear, their own inner chaos. While others pretend they don't have a dark side, the Sigma shapes his into a tool, sharp, precise, and ready when needed. That makes him unsettling, because he's not acting good for approval. He's just aware of who he is, all of who he is. That self-awareness gives him a kind of emotional armor no alpha can fake. You can't blackmail him with shame. You can't manipulate him through guilt. He's already faced his darkness and didn't blink. That makes him unbreakable in ways polite society doesn't understand. You never quite know where a Sigma stands in terms of danger. He's calm, quiet, measured, but you feel something deeper humming under the surface. A quiet understanding that if pushed too far, he won't shout. He won't lose control. He'll act with unnerving clarity. Because he doesn't need to access some hidden reserve of power. He walks with it daily. It's part of him, integrated, controlled. This scares people who depend on pretending. People who want heroes to be flawless and villains to be obvious. The Sigma breaks that illusion. He can be kind and dangerous, honest and unforgiving. He doesn't reject duality. He embodies it. That's why he's unpredictable, not because he's chaotic, but because he's complete. And when a man is at peace with his own darkness, the world loses its power to use it against him. Number 11. They study enemies like case studies, not rivals. They study enemies like case studies, not rivals. To the Sigma male, a threat isn't something to fight, it's something to understand. While alphas get caught in the heat of competition, reacting with pride, ego, and adrenaline, the Sigma stays cool, detached. He doesn't see enemies as obstacles to crush. He sees them as data. Every betrayal, every slight, every manipulation attempt becomes a blueprint, a psychological map of who you are and how you operate. He doesn't waste energy trying to win against someone. He lets them expose themselves. He watches how they lie, how they panic, what triggers their insecurities, what scripts they run in conflict. And while they think they're getting under his skin, he's quietly building a full psychological profile, calmly, like a surgeon with a scalpel. He doesn't fight fire with fire. He dissects the fire, learns its chemistry, then walks away with the formula to prevent it from ever burning him again. That's why enemies don't feel victorious after going up against a Sigma. They feel examined, like they were being studied the entire time, because they were. The Sigma doesn't seek revenge. That would mean the enemy still has power. What he wants is understanding. Because with understanding comes immunity. Once he figures you out, once he maps your behavior down to the last insecurity, you can't touch him. He won't hate you. He won't fear you. He simply evolves beyond the version of himself that ever let you in. That's what makes him terrifying. He doesn't argue. He archives. You don't even realize you've been reduced to a mental file until you try to get a reaction, and he gives you none. Not because he's numb, but because he already categorized you. And outdated threats don't deserve emotional bandwidth. He's not trying to win. He's trying to learn. And in doing so, he becomes a more dangerous version of himself every time someone crosses him. Because for a Sigma, pain is a lesson, betrayal is a manual, and enemies are textbooks he reads once, memorizes, and then never opens again. Number 12. They walk through chaos without announcing it. They walk through chaos without announcing it. No drama, no public unraveling, no grand speeches about how hard life's been. While others turn struggle into a performance, the Sigma male treats pain like a private rite of passage. He doesn't look for pity. He doesn't beg for understanding. He just endures, quietly, fiercely, and alone. When life falls apart, when the pressure becomes unbearable, when everything inside him wants to scream, he goes inward. Not because he's emotionally numb, but because he believes strength is something you live, not something you post about. You won't catch him airing his breakdowns online or gathering sympathy like currency. His battles are internal. His healing is silent. His survival is a secret. People around him often assume he's fine, even when he's walking through fire. That's the disturbing part. He won't give you signs. He won't ask for help. He might be losing sleep, bleeding internally, carrying pain that would crush other men, and still show up calm, controlled, and clear-eyed. That calm isn't the absence of pain. It's the discipline of not letting pain become a spectacle. And when it's over, when the storm has passed, you won't hear him tell the world what he overcame. You'll just see results, growth, a colder stare, a stronger silence, maybe a few people he no longer talks to, maybe a new direction that makes no sense to anyone but him. That's how you know he went through something, not from his words, but from the evolution. This terrifies people who need external validation to feel strong. Alphas often thrive on being seen overcoming challenges. The Sigma doesn't. He's the type to bury his own father and still show up the next day without a crack in his voice. Not because he's emotionless, but because he doesn't need to share his suffering to prove his strength. He doesn't fear chaos. He becomes order within it, and that quiet, controlled resilience, that's what makes him dangerous. Because if he can survive that much without ever flinching, what else is he capable of? The Sigma male is not just different, he's disruptive. Not because he's louder, stronger, or more dominant than the Alpha, but because he doesn't need any of that to be powerful. He doesn't chase titles, he doesn't fight for attention, and he doesn't play in systems designed to keep men predictable and controlled. He operates in silence, in depth, in complete psychological freedom. And that freedom is what terrifies people. Because here's the truth. You can't control a man who doesn't need your validation. You can't manipulate a man who studies betrayal instead of drowning in it. You can't compete with someone who's erased the scoreboard and built his own universe. The Sigma isn't here to lead the pack. He's here to remind the pack that some wolves don't run in circles at all. He's calm in chaos, cold in betrayal, magnetic in silence, and deadly in his restraint. He doesn't warn you before becoming unforgettable. He simply becomes. And by the time the world realizes what he is, he's already 5 moves ahead. This is why the Sigma male unnerves even the most dominant alpha. Not because he's trying to dethrone anyone, but because he doesn't care about the throne. He doesn't need to be seen to have impact. He doesn't need approval to evolve. And he doesn't need permission to walk away from anything that tries to own him. Even love, even power, even legacy. So the next time you sense a quiet force in the room, someone who isn't competing, performing, or seeking the spotlight, don't mistake that silence for weakness. You might just be standing next to a Sigma male, and if you are, you're not watching someone who wants control. You're watching someone who already has it, not over others, but over himself. And that is the most terrifying kind of power there is. If this hit different, if you felt that shift in perspective, that silent nod of recognition, then you already know you're not like the rest. So here's your next move. Subscribe to the channel and join a space that actually gets men who walk alone and think deeper. Like the video if it gave you clarity, insight, or just confirmed what you've always known about yourself but couldn't put into words. Drop a comment below, not for the algorithm but to show the world that quiet strength still exists. And share this with someone who's been underestimated, misunderstood, or misread. They might just be a Sigma who hasn't realized it yet. Stay sharp, stay sovereign. More truth is coming, and it won't be sugar-coated.